Well, hello, everybody, once again, and thank you so much for tuning in to All Access Pass from Home. As you've been following along with these throughout the last couple of weeks, taking an opportunity to go and chat with some of your favorite stars from your cruises. I understand that a lot of you tuned into most of the Flower Power content. We've also done some content for the other cruises. And we're also reaching out and touching base with people that were or were not necessarily going to be on specific cruises, but fit different genres. It's convoluted. Basically, we're reaching out to a bunch of our family and friends from the different cruises to see what people are up to, how they're feeling, and what's going on. And today I'm honored to be joined by the one and only Bob Cowsill, one of the founding members of the Cowsills. How are you, sir?
Well, it makes me feel very old being a founding member of anything, but I'm doing great. Thank you.
True. Sorry. One of the last joining members of the Cowsills.
Yeah, right.
Bob
I was there from the get-go at 7 years old. So
7 years old.
Yes, sir.
What's it like saddling up at 7 years old for something like that?
Well, we had gotten a couple of guitars, my older brother Bill and I, from my dad, who would go out in the Navy out to ports of calls all over the world. He came back with a couple of little 4-string guitars. We grabbed them at 7 and 8, and we never stopped.
And that was the foreshadowing for what you are still doing today. It was at 7 or 8 years old.
I don't want to say how many years I've been playing the guitar because now everyone's going to do the math.
Yeah, we don't need that. We don't need that.
63.
That's pretty cool, man. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's well, first let me say this, I guess, before I start diving into any questions for you. I hope you understand and your family understand how absolutely beloved you are on our cruises. It is unbelievable how people clamor to, are the Cowsills going to be on? Are the Cowsills coming back? Are the Cowsills on this year? It's, to be quite frank, we're irritated and over you at this point because we're done hearing about how great you are. Do you feel that on board the ship, how much people just absolutely love you guys?
We feel it even off the ship. And I agree, you can only eat so much sugar.
Yeah.
But, you forge in this type of cruise that you have, the Flower Power, you forge relationships with your audience that go way beyond the relationship you have with a normal concert audience.
Sure.
It's more interactive. It's more back and forth. It's just amazing how that, and more passionate. It really is. It's been a great experience with the Flower Power groups because they are passionate.
They are passionate. It's got to change it's got to change the game for you a little bit. I mean, you've been doing concerts for quite a few years now, but how often do you do a concert and then get up and go to breakfast and there your fans are having breakfast with you? And then there they are sitting around the pool and there they are. I mean, you're immersed in it. It's kind of a cool thing, the whole concept for a theme cruise.
And that's the same for us as it is with the people who go on these cruises, because, a typical concert, we do a meet and greet after the show. Now, that could go on, but it's finite. It ends and everybody goes home, and that's the end of that. The Flower Power cruise to us is a meet and greet itself, interspersed with shows, the Q&As, the autograph sessions, and the daily interaction with everybody who's there to have such a good time around music. And even within our band, our like Paul, I might be late for breakfast, but that guy's going to be early. You know what I mean? So we embrace the uniqueness of having that interaction, because especially coming from the old days where there was no interaction. You could read about your group in a magazine, hope they come to your town, or hope they get on a variety show. That's it. You're not taping anything. You're not. It's so different. So this being the opposite of that is just amazing. And when you experience it, it's really hard to describe. But all the other acts and the people that do this know what we are all talking about. And they talk in a way where other people want to go, hey, that sounds a lot of fun. I think I could get in on that. So it's pretty unique.
Is it's got to be kind of trippy talking to people that have been fans of yours for, 50 some odd years. I mean, people that have followed you since they were young and you were kids, and, people that there's a lot of true fans.
These are conversations none of us were allowed to have in the old day, either because of strict parents or the technology wasn't there.
Yeah.
So the passion and the all in on this is because of something like that. We've been pent up for decades with each other, and we came out with the internet, and everyone was saying, "Where you been?" And we're going, "Where have you been?" There was really no way to track.
There was just no connection in the middle. Yeah.
Nothing. These groups, the flower power groups especially, are so connected off the ship, on the ship. It's remarkable. It's its own world.
It really is. So
and
if
other people want in.
That's the beauty of it, is when you create, so I was going to go a different direction, but when you create something, sustainable is the wrong word. When you create something though that has sustained and that has a passionate fan base, it's hard to imagine that everyone doesn't want to be in. It's hard to imagine.
Yeah. It's the atmosphere on the ship itself. It feeds itself. It builds during the cruise. It even builds.
Yeah.
It just takes over the environment, and it's a I'm not going to say frenzy, but it is something.
Well, it's passionate. It's passionate. Yeah, you said it yourself. It's very passionate. So take us back a few years, if you'd be so kind, Bob, for those folks that don't know you so well, and I know there's very few of them out there that don't, but just in case, tell us a little bit about the very early days, the building, the process of creating. How did the Cowsills come to be?
Well, first there were two, Billy and I, at 7 and 8. By 10 and 11, we're playing at dances at the Boys Club in Middletown, Rhode Island. My big solo at the time was Travelin' Man by Ricky Nelson. We were more an instrumental band at the time, playing with friends of ours, Billy and I. All the venture songs and all the instrumental hits of the day. Then we added, and then there were three. Barry was our first drummer, our brother Barry, because you are old enough, you go, "Hey, we need drums. Look at these drummers." We're just kids. We're watching television. We're engrossed with the Osmonds on the Andy Williams Show, the McGuire sisters, Sing Along with Mitch, any of the singing shows where we could see performers. And the barbershop quartet version of the Osmonds in the Andy Williams days was really impressive to us, because they got on TV and sang with no instruments. And you really, if you were listening to harmonizing, there it was with nothing interfering with it. And we learned a lot from that. And then we had drums, and then we learn about a bass guitar, and you don't even know what it is. There's no internet. You're on an island. There's nothing going on. There's nothing no one's.
You're also very young. You're not, it's not
very
like
young.
Not worldly at that point.
Yeah, we're like 13. Bill, I'm 12. Barry's like 8. And then we wanted to be a foursome with the bass, so we get the bass. We're going from within the family because, like I said, there's no one around. So you work from within. You call up the troops from within. So we moved.
You're in Rhode Island, right? At this point.
Yes, we're in Middletown, Rhode Island, which is on Aquidneck Island. And like I say, other than Who's on Ed Sullivan this week, there's your research.
Yeah.
Other than that, you have recordings. You buy them, and all you can do is listen to them and try and figure it out. So the four of us got together. Now we're 4 brothers. We're rehearsing still. But Bill and I were doing gigs. Our first gig, he was 12, I was 10 at the time, and had a luncheon for the Newport, Rhode Island Women's Guild luncheon. Got $10 each at that age. $1,000. Or as my brother Bill put it, we can make money too. Something like that. I can't remember. It's a long time ago. But we loved the recordings. And when the Beatles came out, we were all at our age. And I don't overstate it. It's the truth. The Beatles came along just at the right time. They showed us, look, here's what you can play. Here's what the instruments you need. We're 4, you're 4. Here's how we do it. The 3 appearances on the Ed Sullivan Show that year, 3 in a row. That was like, school is in. You had to be in front of your TV at 8 o'clock Sunday night. We were. You had to watch closely. We were. You couldn't replay it. That's for sure. And you had to be there. And they did 3 weeks, which is good enough for all of us to get going. Now, we had a knack for being able to play Beatles songs ever since we were kids. still do have that knack. And so at least that gave us some guidance, because we had been engrossed in folk music prior to that. We were playing at hoot nannies and singing Peter, Paul and Mary songs and Kingston Trio, all of that. And it was a great movement, but it wasn't us, and we were younger. So we have the foursome. We go into a club. We start playing a club in Newport, and a guy from the Today Show comes down and sees these four brothers who are quite talented playing in a club. I don't know how our parents got us to be able to do that. John was only 7 years old on drums.
I was going to say, you couldn't have been old enough to be in said club.
No, Barry was 9 or 10 on bass, and we weren't, they figured it out. A small town, maybe the mayor liked my dad. I can't tell. But they liked us so much, they put us on the Tonight Show.
Oh.
And I'm sorry, the Today Show. I put that on the timeline. It was the Today Show when it was Hugh Downs and Barbara Walters. And we did about 20 minutes of cover tunes, because that's what we did. And it wasn't like we were famous. It's like, look at these cute kids. And so that band, the foursome, got a record deal from that with Johnny Nash from Joda Records, it was called at the time. Johnny Nash sang Hercules and I Can See Clearly Now. Okay, that guy, but at the time he had a record company. And Bill, our lead singer, was Motown. We could do them all. We did Beatles, Motown. And so their plan was that we come in, we have black writers, black musicians, black producers. We call these our Black New York years because, and we were the only white kids there. I'm just saying that's what it was. I mean, we had a blast. We were all into these musicians and the songs. He introduced us to Jimmy Reed and some of our early recordings of Jimmy Reed songs no one's ever heard, but we have them. We went into the studio when I was 14, Bill was 15, and Barry and John were like 7 and 10. And we recorded 15, 16 songs that we found recently that no one has ever heard. But when I hear it, I go, okay, I get this band. I'm too old to remember those sessions other than my relentless, immature lead guitar playing that seemed to go on. But I haven't said that. But look, the experiment failed. We put out a record, it bombed. We got picked up by Shelby Singleton from Mercury Phillips then, the four brothers. And met Artie Kornfeld there as the staff producer. He was about 21 years old. But if I'm 16, he's 21, he's like 51. So we're listening to Artie and every word that man's saying. He lives with us for a summer at Howland.
He's fatherly, I'm sure.
Yeah. He, his first reaction to be assigned this group, he has a good story about that. I mean, we're just kids and he's going, what? But we found George Martin, I'll put it that way. And then they dropped us. We put out a few releases, dropped from that label in '66. And then Artie left with us, wrote The Rain in the Park and Other Things for us without a label, without any money. He took us into the studio. We recorded the song almost just as you hear it. And by that, I'll explain that. We make the record. It sounds great, but we've been there, done that 4 times. So no one's walking around, boy, do we have a hit record. Holy cow, we're going to get famous. No one, we're mature at this age by now. So in terms of that issue. So Artie brings us into the studio. Between the recording of The Rain in the Park and Other Things with Jimmy Wisner and the orchestra, the whole thing, because we walk into New York studios at the, when the Beach Boys were doing Wouldn't It Be Nice kind of sessions with the Wrecking Crew. We walk into this time zone of music. So the band is gone. We have studio musicians. We got harps, strings, Jimmy Wisner, and The Rain in the Park and Other Things. Between then and signing with MGM, they came up with the brilliant idea, sat us down and said, here's what's missing. It's your mother. So you're telling teenage guys who've been on 2 labels, had 4 flops up to this point, that the solution they're coming up with is to add the mother to the group. Never been done before. And to us, that's for a reason. But to the higher ups, it makes sense. It differentiates us from every 4-piece band who wanted to be the Beatles, including us at the time. It took us away from that pack and made us very unique. Now, I learned that as an adult because it took a long time to accept it as a kid. And you didn't go to school and say, how's the band? Well, our mom's in it now. I mean,
we're really good now. Mom's in it, so we're
not
killing
terrible news. It's like they're really going to kill it off now. But of course, they bring the whole package. Now we got to go back in the studio, right? Mom's not on The Rain in the Park and Other Things. Got to get her on. She's so afraid to record. In that recording that you listen to, the high melody, I love the flower girl. that's me and Mom, because I had to stand behind Mom and sing it with her so she could do it. She was so afraid, and
Oh,
did a
that's
good job
cool.
that way. But I had to coach her through that. So that's her and me. You hear up there doubling that high melody.
That's a
And
great
then,
story.
of course, MGM releases it, took it lock, stock, and barrel. Who wouldn't? You know, we did a long showcase for them, I remember, and they signed us, put us on the road. And that long, since the age we were 7 and 8, crawl to the first hit record, everyone thought was an overnight success, happened, even though it was not an overnight success. And it took off from there. And
You
then,
just
and
needed
then
your mom.
we're adding family members. Paul and Susan come in. We want the big vocals. We're really cooking now because we got into vocals big time. More singers, you know, Susan, Paul, and everyone is having a good time and creating. And in the studio was the best. We always loved the studio, still do. It's the best place to be to make music. Second on stage, first in the studio.
Really, you like studio more so than live.
I I could live. They're so different. You could almost
Yeah,
maybe not try and compare them because
absolutely.
one leads to the other,
Yeah.
and we understand that. But there is nothing like being in a recording studio with some ideas and the means to implement them and try them and have them turn out kind of acceptable and good. It's a great experience. I could spend
Mhm.
all the time in the studio, but of course that's not productive. But that's how fun it is.
Well, it's interesting though. In actually, you'd be a great person to ask. So, one of the things you encounter with groups, not frequently, but you do encounter it, is their records are phenomenal, but when you get them on stage live, it's not what you heard. It's not they're not live what they are in a studio. And some people, there's a lot of different things to attribute that to. It's a testament to the bands that perform live the same way they perform in a studio to track.
It's a challenge. We faced it with the Rain in the Park and other things the first year we had hit records. The challenge was a lot of groups spend their time on the road developing their sound, then go into the studio. We developed our sound in the studio and took it to the road. And of course, we're standing there with the Rain in the Park and other things sessions going, how do you translate this to the stage? And we're fortunate in that our vocals, my son Ryan put it really well one day. He's our keyboard player. He said, if you have a show where your band is off, but your vocals are on, you have a great show anyway. If you have a show where your band is just cooking and great and your vocals suck that night, you have a lousy show.
Yeah.
So to us, the vocals and being able to sing and that's why we can grab a guitar and do a show with the just vocals. So we were fortunate in that our vocals never fail us and are always with us in our hip pocket. You know, we might have a musician lacking. We might have a situation where we're not up to par with the band. The show's still okay. You know, so we're fortunate in that way. The band's with one lead singer and that's it. And the band, everyone's got to be on all the time.
Yeah.
And we're on all the time too. That doesn't mean you get lazy.
Sure.
But I understand the question. How do you translate in the studio to on stage? And we've all experienced the groups where we sat there and said, how can they be so good? And I've had the experience where how can they be so good on stage and this is their recording? I've had the opposite happen.
Yeah.
I'm not going to name bands, but we've all been through it, you know, so I understand that.
And so as you're a kids and you guys are, I'm going to take you back to before the big hits. I'm going to take you back to like Bannister's Wharf and, you know, kind of those early days. At what point did you, I mean, you said at one point, your brother, we can make money doing this. At what point did you realize you could do this for a profession, not just as a hobby?
I'll tell you that comment about the money, those were two kids, then we were heading down to the candy store.
Of course.
Yeah. But later, I'll have to say that it sounded so good in the house that our dad, I mean, there was no denying what was going on in the house. Yeah. So our dad, he's a Navy guy, but he's an entrepreneur. He always had 2 or 3 other jobs, you know, and he's that guy. He sat us down one day and we had a meeting and said, you guys want to go for this? Meaning hit the streets in New York, all of it. We kind of knew what he meant. And he wanted us we had to raise our hand if we were going to go for it. We all raised our hands.
You had to yay nay it. Yeah.
We had to raise our hands. We all raised our hands. And I got to hand it to him. That guy hit the streets of New York and he never looked back. So you do need that kind of support,
Yeah.
which we got from MGM also, you know, after the fact. All of us need that special person who at that time gave the right support to bring it forth in the right direction, to the level it needed to be brought. And he was good at that going up. He wasn't good at it going down and while we were on top, but our dad was real good at it going up that bell curve, man. He knew just what to do. And that means don't look left, don't look right, my way or the highway. And he did it. Those don't look left, don't look right, my way or the
Yeah.
highway, you got to radically change that thinking once you make it to stay up there. Okay. And he didn't. So that's a quick synopsis of why it went down at the end, but that's the truth.
But you know, I think in not everyone is good at everything. You know, some people, that everyone has their things that they're good at, and clearly your father was exceptional at what he was good at, and you know, you were
Yes.
he was so necessary for you at the time.
Here's the deal with him and us in those early days. He was good at banging that door open, and he knew, and we did with that. Once we got in it, we would come through for him, because we were good at that. We were just, you know, had DNA or something, that we all had the same DNA where we could do this and do it well. So that worked out
Confidence,
very well.
confidence is a hard thing, you know, especially when you're young and you're still, you know, there's something to be said, I guess, for being young enough that you don't know when to be afraid, but there's also something to be said for having that kind of gravitas, for lack of better words, at a young age. That's tricky.
It's true, because when we had our first release, that gravitas made us all walk around thinking we didn't release our first record. We just released our first hit record.
Yeah.
So that's the mindset. Now, after the second label and the second, third, and fourth release, you're not saying we're putting out a hit record. You're a little more of a veteran, even though you're young, you know. And with MGM, at that point, you're starting to appreciate a third opportunity here. I mean, look, everyone says, oh, you just got to get through the nose and look for the yes. It took 3 yeses for this band to make it. So that's not always true, that saying at all. You can have a yes and that yes doesn't work out. Now what do you do? And I think that what I just described is so much more difficult today. To get 3 yeses is, I can't imagine.
Yeah, it's a battle for people, I think, for sure. It's one thing to be in a group. It's another thing to be in a very close group of very close friends. I think it's a completely different dynamic when it's family. Talk to us. God, I love you, Bob. Talk to us a little bit about the dynamic of being in a group with family.
Well, the group, the best way to put it is that the family became literally a business. And the family part of the family and really took a sidebar to the whole thing, especially if it got in the way, because there was no stopping this. And so it became a business. It's also what killed it at the end, was that it was a business that died, not a family. It fractured the family, which was unbeknownst to all of us, truly is the foundation, whether you know it or not. And if you fracture your foundation, you're in big trouble. So once the family was fractured, the business collapsed. So it is connected. But in terms of our mindsets, we are working musicians, the Bannister's Wharf years. This is Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, performing 4 hours a night in high school and grade school. So clearly we loved what we were doing. When the Beatles put out an album, we'd run out, buy it, and learn it, because the people expected that from us at the club we were playing at Doreen's, it was called. And they knew they could go there and hear I Feel Fine by the Beatles played by us. And we, you know, I was McCartney, Bill was Lennon. We just had it, you know, and we loved that band so much that we heard they were songwriters. Oh, we're going to have songwriters. They used what on We Can Work It Out? A keyboard? Huh? We bought a keyboard. You know, we learned every other white note is a chord. You know, that's how you play it. And so you just self-teach. You keep alert, and you keep looking for signs from the other groups you're watching who are doing it successfully. on what you can implement from that formula to your own. And then once you filter it through yourselves for a long time and you're writing and you're recording, it becomes you. And then people start talking about your roots, and then those names are going to come back then, you know. But in the early days, they're not your roots, they're your copy machine. You
And
know, look, drums,
absolutely.
amps, Gretsch
And
guitars.
were you guys pretty much playing everything by ear then? Could any of you read music?
Never, to this day, none of us can read or write music. It was all by ear. It's by slicing and dicing the recordings and just listening. Now, and then the three Ed Sullivan shows, they physically, it was the first time we all saw how they did it physically, you know, how they put it together. Up until then, we were so young, all we could imagine was from the pictures, how does this work? You know, what's this bass? You know, and so we get a bass and you start hearing, what's the bass do? You know, you can only hear what it does. No, you can't, there's no one to call, nothing to look up. It's just, you're on your own. You're on your own.
Which is tough. I mean, it's hard enough as an adult.
Well, you didn't know it was tough at the time. Today, I think of it and I go, wow, we did pretty good with no resources. Yeah, you got to take that on a bike and drive down to Johnny Flanders' house to find this chord you're looking for, because he's the other guitarist on the island. You know what I mean? It's stuff like that.
I love that explanation. Old Johnny Flanders, because he's the only guy on the island.
Well, you know, you use what's there.
Yeah,
and he was better than us. We were Cub Scouts. He was a better guitar player. He knew what to do. You know,
that's cool.
So we all had something like that in our lives, I think.
I think that's very true. I think that's very true.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's very true. So I'd be remiss if I didn't. I had 3 questions from guests asked to me to say, ask him about the Partridge Family. Ask him about the Partridge Family.
You know, when the Partridge Family came down the pike, we were living in Santa Monica, and we were successful recording and touring artists. So, and teenagers still. So now there's this coming into play. Do we want to stop touring and recording? Because we think fame's going to last forever, by the way, at the time.
Of course.
Also.
Well, of course.
Right, yeah. So that's how we're thinking. So we're reacting that way. Do we want to give up this to add a full-time 5 days a week down to the TV studio for this, whatever they got in mind? And we weren't for it. Personally, we would have done it had it been brought to us and we were told to do it, because that's how we rolled. But in the private conversations in the bedrooms, it's like, what? I heard TV shows start at 6 a.m. What? And how are we going to tour and do the TV show? This is bogus. Yeah, blah, blah, blah. And you're not looking for money, fame, and fortune anymore, because you've kind of achieved it in your head. And in your head, you can run this any way you want. So we didn't do it. It wasn't going to happen anyway, because Shirley Jones was going to be the mom. So Dad was going to kill it there. And they came out to the house and checked us out and visited with us and kind of, you know, checked us out. They liked Susan. She was cute. Susan says they called us stick figures because we're not actors, and they weren't going to have us anyway. They went to Central Casting, and it was the correct thing to do. They had a great show. And now, of course, in retrospect, at the time of their rising, that coincided as an overlap with R.G. Scent. So the Partridge Family kept our name in the press all through their run. Thank you. And now we keep their name in the press through our now run, the run we're on now. So it all worked out.
That's cool. It's got to be tough to be that age and have that kind of success and have things starting to happen. And now TV is calling, and to maintain any type of level-headedness at all, it has got to be tricky.
Well, the thing is as kids, and up to this time, you're even talking about 1969 and 70 in Santa Monica, we were doing what we wanted to do. We weren't missing anything. Now, a lot of that may have been, we didn't know what we were missing. I don't think so, though. We were doing what we wanted from the time we were young. There was no debate about this. It's just, what label are we going to do it at? Sure. And the proof of that is after it ended, when I say it ended, it never ends, but you know what I mean, the run back in the 60s, that segment of the timeline. Once it ended, we didn't stop. I was a pub singer for 28 years every night, 3 nights a week, 5 nights a week. If you're an artist and you sing, you do it for that reason. That sounds so corny. Sounds corny, but you do it for that reason. You like to do it, and it's something you do well. And who doesn't want to do a job they do well?
Unfortunately, lots of people, or they do it and they don't do it well, and they just hammer away at it anyway. We know those as well.
I know the uniqueness of what we did, and the joy that it brings us. And you don't think about, hey, let's bring this joy to other people. It's not how
Yeah.
you think. You just think someone wants to sign you, good, we get to go in the studio. With MGM, they asked me one time, we had a lawsuit. You know, we all go through the lawsuit years of trying to
Sure.
get your royalties. So we went through it. They pushed the MGM contract in front of me, and I'm 17 and the contract says I'm 21. It was a joke. But they asked me, did you sign that? And it was my signature. I know the Palmer method from being raised a Catholic. You know, that's my signature. And I said, it's me. And they said, well, I just signed it. I said, because they said that if we sign this, we can go into the recording studio. And that was my answer.
Yeah.
And that's all I cared about. I don't know the other
Yeah.
55 pages and what it says, you know. It's like this was a means to an end here.
Yeah.
So we've always done this and always wanted to do it.
Fast forward for me a little bit. We're obviously talking about the 60s, 70s run. Let's fast forward to what the group is now. How do you guys decide that let's all get back together, let's start touring again, let's start doing this thing again?
That was decided for us by society, the public, the internet, the reconnect. That's a big equation. No one
Yeah.
sat around and said, hey, let's do it again, because the statistics are against you. You know, Kenny
Supply
Rogers
and
did
demand,
it.
right?
You get one shot most of the time in this
Yeah.
business. And once you've run it out, you're done, a run and done. But we all kept busy individually doing this. Susan and even Barry and Billy and Mia, we all kept individually being an artist and doing what we
Mhm.
always did. It just wasn't getting slapped with a label and released. So we go through many, many years, and we went into the studio 2 times in the late 70s and late 80s and did the Cocaine Drain album and the Global album, knowing we didn't have a label, knowing that we're not looking for a hit record.
Mhm.
All we would say is we wrote these songs. Songs should be recorded. Songs do not sit around
Yeah.
unrecorded, in our opinion. We want to finish them. You know, you don't walk around with your skeleton showing. You put clothes on it. So it's like we always wanted to, if we wrote songs, put them in there. Get into the studio. Well, what do you think you're going to do? Get a record deal? No, we're going to make a good record. And then you do, and you move on. And now today, but here's what happens. We all grow older, and our audience calls the boomers or whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
And even younger, by the way, we have heard
Yeah.
the phrase, I found you on the internet.
Yeah.
So I Googled you, and there you were. I liked the song in Dumb and Dumber. I looked you up, who did it? It was you. And then I looked into you. This business of the world connect through the internet and the ease of information travel, all conducive to resurgences. Oh, there they are. You know,
Yeah.
oh wow, there's this group, there's that group. And so
I
we're
remember
here
them. I
now.
loved them. Or yeah.
Oh, it's fantastic. And you'd see other groups, and then you find out that most of the groups never quit. You
Yeah.
just never heard about it. That's all. They've always been out there playing and doing their thing. So, but now it's more serious. And this is late in our career. There is truly a second wave that feels very familiar, like the first wave in the late 60s, not the global cocaine drain waves. This is something else going on. Now, a lot of that is the ability to reach your audience, to
Mhm.
perform for them, to have all the excitement around this, a big giant generational reunion that we're all having and enjoying and connecting over. And the musicians that were the soundtrack of our existence back then, they're still here. The ones that gave us our music, it's like everybody's in.
Yeah.
And so, and our generation has now reached the level of we're running things. You hear the TV commercials, they know who has the money.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and we're all, and the fact that our generation of music tested time. Our children
Yeah.
love our records. Their children love our records, our recordings. The boomer music, they'll never let it go. Whether you're in Ralph's, an elevator, I don't care. I said to someone the other day, when are they going to stop playing boomer music in restaurants? I mean, clearly we're not the demographic they're after, but it's the music they're after,
Yeah.
because that music makes people feel good. That's why the Flower Power Cruise is almost based on that premise of music being so fantastic. And what? You're telling me we can go see the original artist that we could only dream of getting to in the old days? You think anyone's going to come perform in Middletown, Rhode Island? Or that you have the wherewithal to go to the Providence Auditorium because some famous group is there? Not everyone had that life. We were a Navy
Yeah.
family. We couldn't even go to a restaurant in terms of, you didn't go to restaurants. It's too expensive. What, a concert? That was like foreign to us. So all that's changed. Now the people who wanted to go see Paul Revere and the Raiders in the old days never could, or us, or the Beach Boys, any of these bands, Peter, Peter Gordon.
Yeah.
It's a missed opportunity that we can have. Look, everyone knows we're older. Everyone knows what we look like, but I am amazed at how good everybody sounds. And the most important thing to the fans and the artist is that these songs are performed properly and how we remember them. We embrace that. I don't need some 70-year-old musician, which I am, giving me their reinterpretation of their big hit record. I'm there to hear what I want to hear, what I expect to hear. Now, a lot of artists would call that a restriction. I call it a celebration, because you couldn't get to these people back then.
We hear it all the time. And I was actually talking to the Box Tops recently, and we were discussing this exact same thing, that, it's like if you play a song by someone else, you should do that song justice, because people remember that song, and not just the artist, but the fan who bought that record, who paid for that album, the fan who played it on their record player or their 8-track or whatever time frame we're talking here.
Yes.
They committed to that song, and to exactly your point, we hear it at Star Vista all the time, that, hey, so-and-so, I don't know why they changed, they don't need to young up. People call it, that's what we get a lot. We hear younging up. I don't know why they're younging it up.
Maybe bored as artists, I don't know. We've always been a good cover band. It's how we rolled all through the years. We're still a good cover band. The arrangements of these great records they're like burned in everybody's brains.
Yeah.
The instrumental parts of the guitar, everyone knows these songs incredibly well. So you can do one and they go, oh my God, that was just like the original. Mm-hmm. Or they'll go, it's up to you how you want to portray what you can and what you're able to do. Yeah. We could always clone voices. We can clone Beatles. We can, to some degree, to a high percent. And so you got to be true to the arrangements. And they're important songs for all of us. Most of us had 3 or 4 hits, okay? I mean, candidly. Yeah. But most of us also played for an hour and a half. We saw McCartney. He ran out of time, not songs. You come and see us, hour and a half. Well, 12, 15 minutes is our career. What's the rest going to be? And you hit them with, and your challenge is to make sure that they're okay with that, the other hour to hour and a half of that show.
But I think that's one of the things that people absolutely love and adore about the Cowsills is, when we're producing the cruise, and Janine Morris, who you know very well, and Alan Rubens, and Janine and Alan and I specifically, along with Tim Cabral and a few others, we start to kind of move the pieces around, and there are certain pieces that you know what you have with that piece, and you're trying to position it. We just don't throw things at a wall and see what. We literally take the Cowsill's name and we move it around the board until we find, oh, this is the day, this is the theme. Let's move that theme night over here. We know what you're going to bring. We know how you with the Cowsills, we know the level of performance, we know the quality of the song, and we know the reaction of the audience for the most part, because we've seen you and we know you so well now. You're a part of our family in that regard. That, I mean, you are one of the handful of artists for us that we absolutely know is going to hit every single time, regardless.
Thank you. Well, listen, we can only we'll take our credit for performing, but I must say that even a number of years ago, when we were just venturing forth here, we didn't understand the passion that was in our audience for these old hits and how to do them. And I got to tell you, 2 people in particular, Alan and Nick from the Buckinghams, okay? We had conversations with both those guys. Alan sat with me and Paul, and they explained interestingly, like picture a graph. Okay, so you're doing the Rain in the Park. Now the graph looks good. You do a Beatles song looks good. Hey, we're going to do a few songs we wrote, last year. We're going to play those for you. And the graph dips. Now there's nothing wrong with the graph dipping. Then it's human nature. So okay, they're going to do it somewhere, and they understand how artists are. Blah blah blah. But depending on your audience, and tells the Flower Power Cruise, we all want to party on the same songs, and we understood that, and we hit the woodshed and said, man, let's have some fun, and we started doing cover tunes we would never think of doing for the challenge. You Were on My Mind by the Week 5. We just added the Fortunes, You've Got Your Troubles. No one does that. So, and we were excited about the new cruise coming that didn't go because we're going to lay these new covers on, and they're like new hit records to these folks. We love it.
Don't worry, you're going to have your time.
And we're writing our songs, and we've made a great record that's being mixed now. What we think is a great record. That sounded a little pompous, but
new music.
Absolutely,
oh.
we have an opportunity, and we were in the studio for the last year for a total of 6 to 7 weeks over the year, recording. Rhythm of the World is the name of the record that's going to come out in 2020. It's not stalled right now with everything else because Frank Filippetti is mixing it right now. So we're getting it mixed now. We luckily finished recording it before COVID hit. So we're one of the fortunate ones. If we're in the middle of it, we're just waiting, But we can do some work that would have been done normally now to get it ready, continue to get it ready. We had a Pledge Music campaign, a funding campaign that the kids came through for that ended up tanking because Pledge Music went bankrupt, and everyone got stuck holding in the cookie jar, I guess. Who knows?
So to speak.
But we were fortunate enough. We have an executive producer, Rock Positano, who works with us to keep this going for everybody. We have a real shot. The music is good, and we're very excited about it.
Two questions. One, when can we expect to see it?
That's going to be probably later in 2020.
Okay, so later this year.
We got to get through, what we're all going through.
Sure.
So it's going to that's going to affect the timeline, but it's still more on time than not on time, and it'll be ready, and we'll get it out there with a big push.
And my second question, great news. And my second question would be, musically, do you feel like is it an homage? Is it paid tribute more to your sound of the 60s and 70s, or have you adapted your sound? And where do you feel like musically it sits?
I think musically it's, and people have heard it, that are music people, it's contemporary, but it's us. And let's say we stayed famous the whole time. Like you're talking to me and you're talking to a multi-platinum, everything we put out, right? We would still be putting this record out. I'll put it that way. We will still have put out the 2 we put out prior to now. This is where we would have been at in our Cowsill career, whether it ended or not, based on someone else's perspective. It never ended as songwriters and recording artists for us. So we are where we were supposed to be. We just want to get everyone caught up on it now. Now we have a chance to share it, where before we were just had the satisfaction of making a good record for the family and not worrying too much. Although Global, one of our records that we put out in '89, I think, had a distribution of maybe 4,000 copies, but every state and 18 countries, so you look at the distribution map and boy, if we could ever get the volume where it needs to be, we're good to go. So now there's a resurgence. It's been happening a while, the resurgence of Boomer and everything Boomer, and these songs were the best, haven't been topped yet. And the kids today know their music and ours and appreciate the historical value of what we've done and really appreciate that we're still here.
Amen to that. Gary Puckett I was chatting with Gary Puckett on one of these Q&As, and Gary was saying that his grandkids, when they get in the car, will, put on your music, Granddad, put on your music. Well, they call him Doodle. His grandkids call him Doodle. Doodle, where's Doodle's music? Doodle's music. So, yeah, I know.
Gary's a great guy. We love Gary. Yeah.
No, he's phenomenal. But to your point, though, these are his grandchildren that, and these are little guys. These are not teenagers. They're little guys.
Even more compelling is Gary Puckett's grandchildren, yes, but the other kids that are not his grandchildren, he would be surprised who know his music.
Yeah.
This is what surprises us. Our audience
Yeah.
are not just boomer people. Our audiences can be large groups of young people also, because whether they're here for a history lesson, it
Yeah.
doesn't matter if you're going down memory lane or going wild. So that's the band that did that.
Yeah.
Uh, there's something big going on,
It's a testament to good music, though. I mean,
and
pure and
that's what it is.
simple.
Without this music, the cruise isn't happening. The bands
No.
aren't happening anymore. No one would have survived this long with bad music.
Yeah.
Uh, you're as good as your song, and the song is as good as it.
Yeah.
It's just never going to be different than that. That will always be the case.
If you don't mind, let's take another little hop skip. So you've got new music coming out this year. What are you doing to fill your time right now with social distancing and all the shenanigans we're dealing with around the world?
Well, right now we're behaving ourselves like good citizens of the United States of America,
Good
and we're
man.
trying to do what needs to be done to get through this. Uh, I'm look. You can see what a lot of the artists are doing. I'm going to be doing it too. Susan's done it in New Orleans, where you do online kind of performances.
Yeah.
On the 25th of April, I'm doing a Get Together Foundation online marathon for the LA Los Angeles fund. So we're all giving is what we seem to all be
That's
doing.
wonderful.
And watching a lot of television.
What are you
And,
watching? What's your show?
oh, I do follow politics. I need to stay informed. I was
Sure.
always a history major. I love it. When I need a break, for somehow we had kids all during the Seinfeld years, and so we watched, the Seinfeld episodes. I'm going, wow, how did I miss this?
Yeah.
And then I'm into the crime shows and American Greed, and
Yeah.
those two. And I'm watching the sports. Okay, I watched the Super Bowl today. New England Patriots and Giants, saw the helmet catch. Love that again. So I watched crazy airplane races now for lack of sports.
Yeah, I know. We're all
I've,
filling our
I've
time
watched,
with something random.
I've been watching today. I watched cliff diving championships. So you adapt and you
Yeah.
find something you wouldn't normally have seen. You go, you know what? There's
You're
a lot
fans
going
of
on.
stuff you didn't even know you were fans of. Yeah, it's so
It's great.
true. And is everybody, most importantly, I must ask, is everyone feeling okay? Everyone's healthy, keeping washing
So
their hands.
far, yeah,
Good.
statistically, everybody in our worlds are healthy and
Good.
not infected, which is the big not today.
Amen.
So
Amen.
because they say everyone knows someone, blah, blah, and we're fortunate, but you got to play the rules. People know what they're talking about. You want to follow them, don't. But if you want to believe that people know what they're talking about and operate that way, you do that, and that's what we do.
And I'm with you. I mean, there's there's so many facets to this story right now, and there's so many, there's so many explanations as to what's going to do what and what we really need to do. And I get it, and I'm certainly not here to say who's right and who's wrong, but at minimum, I think if we all play by at least a very general basic set of standards in the middle, wash your hands, try to keep some distance,
Know the
if
rules.
know the rules. If you're going to be in busy places, if you don't want to wear a mask, that's fine. At least cover up somehow. And I get it. I mean, I understand. But I think
Yeah.
to your point, though, as long as we can all play by just a human kindness set of rules,
You've got to be courteous to others.
be courteous
Look,
to each other.
here's what's going to happen. It's going to end, of course.
Yeah,
We're all going to come back more appreciative, more
I hope
giving,
so. I hope so.
more loving. Well, even if it's for a while and everyone settles into their old ways, that'll be good for a while then. But I think there's going to be some long-lasting effect here. And for instance, just imagine back on the Flower Power ship.
It's going to be epic.
Okay, well, that kind of celebration, that word epic that so easily fell out of you, it's going to apply to everything. It's going to be crazy. There won't be room for all the good, and we'll make it work, and it's all going to be okay.
We're pretty excited about it. I actually read a report today out of one of the major magazines that cruise bookings for 2021, as hands off as everyone is right now, and as trepidatious, for lack of better words, as everyone is right now, cruise bookings, actually people signing on and booking regular cruises, not just charters, is up majorly for 2021 right now.
That's going to be a high need for people,
Yeah.
and not just the cruise industry, of course, but since we're in that,
Yeah.
absolutely. Why not think ahead and go, holy cow, that I am going to think that is so amazing when that happens. I'm booking now.
Yeah.
And boy, that's a great attitude. You know, that's a looking forward attitude. I love it.
It's important to have. Well, Bob, you're absolutely fantastic, and I've stolen almost an hour of your time, sir. You're very kind and generous, and I appreciate you. I know, just goes right away.
Yeah.
Any final words for all your fans watching this right now before we jump off?
Oh, we so appreciate hearing from everybody. We appreciate this opportunity you've all given us to be relevant again, and can't wait to get back in front of you and press the flesh or hit an elbow or kick your knee or whatever happens by then. But hang in and we'll pick this up where we left it off. Yeah.
Great message, Bob. Thank you so much. For everybody watching, thank you for tuning in to another edition of All Access Pass from Home. I'm your cruise host, Jason, and today, your virtual cruise host, Jason. And today I had the honor of sitting down with founding member of the Cowsills, Mr. Bob Cowsill. Thank you again, sir, for your time. We really do appreciate it, and all of your words. And hope we'll see you again soon here. If not on this chat, I know we'll see you again soon on a cruise.
Absolutely. See you on the high seas.
Love it. Thank you so much, Bob. And for everybody, thanks for tuning in. Keep your eye focused on this channel for more programming coming up. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day. We'll see you.